Are you a business owner looking to grow your business in South Africa? Tune in to the Blaze Podcast with Telkom Business. Learn from the experts and get tips on marketing, finance, innovation, and more. Blaze with Telkom Business.
Welcome back to the Telkom Business Blaze Podcast. I'm Mashudu, and I couldn't be more thrilled to kick off Season 2 with all of you. For those of you who are new to the podcast, this is where we provide small and medium enterprises with the latest insights, tips, and strategies to help you thrive in today's business landscape. Season 1 was a fantastic journey filled with expert interviews, practical advice, and inspiring success stories from entrepreneurs who've blazed their own trails. This season, we're turning up the heat even more with a lineup of incredible guests, deeper dives into critical business topics, and even more actionable content that you can implement in your business right away. Whether you're tuning in from your office or from your home, we're here to support your business every step of the way. Today, we're going to start off with the importance of branding and how you can improve and step into the right direction as an SME, which I know you're going to find incredibly valuable. So, get ready to ignite your business's potential with the Telkom Business Blaze Podcast Season 2. Let's dive in. Hi, Bulelani.
Awesome, man.
I'm very well. I'm so excited to have you on the show today because I think you have an incredible journey that a lot of entrepreneurs can learn from.
No, man, I'm very excited as well to be here, but most importantly with you, actually.
Really? Yeah. Okay, I'm excited. It's a good thing we're friends because then, this is going to be short. Do you know, I might know your journey and some people might as well, but for someone that has no context at all, how would you say you started your entrepreneurial journey?
Sure, man. My entrepreneurial journey, formal entrepreneurial journey, started 18 years ago. Guess in my mother's garage. So the reason why I say formal, formal in the sense of registering the business and operating, right? So started my mother's garage, running an internet cafe at the time. And obviously because of the time that we're in, and the lack of resources. It was an internet cafe that had nothing internet cafe about it, right? We didn't have internet. And interestingly enough, we were the first to apply for Telkom ADSL.
Oh, wow.
They had no ADSL exchange at the time. They had dial-up in the whole entire Tembisa.
Hey, you're exposing your age right now.
Now, I started very young.
Yeah.
I started extremely young, right? And I think, also, I think for me, the importance of maybe highlighting how I started, it's important that I also highlight what you're mentioning now. I think just to take a couple of steps back, my highest grade when I started was grade 9, right? And I think the thinking around that was my mother was being retrenched. So she wanted whatever savings she would have left for me to at least have some sort of a trade. So the minimum entrance to an FET college was grade 9 in actual fact. So immediately when I finished, the thinking was you'll go in, let's see how far the money will take us. Went in there, did introductory courses, did N1, did N2, then the money sort of fizzled out and I never really got to specialize in anything. So this young kid from Tembisa, I'm frustrated, disgruntled. And then I guess the idea sort of pops up, And the idea then when it popped up was because I saw a friend of mine coming back from school wearing a T-shirt with his name on it. So being a kid in the township and you're 15 or 16 and seeing a friend with a personalized T-shirt was one of the rarest things you'll ever come across, right? And I think that sparked a seed in me to say, oh, wow, this personalized stuff, I guess I didn't call it printing then because I didn't know what it was called, right? Would be a very interesting business to sort of delve into. And obviously it had its own complexities because you almost don't have anyone close to you that you can reference, that you can go to, who can help you with a model, who can help you to entrance into that market. So you sort of then keep it at the back of your head, but you then start with whatever you sort of start with. So then my start was this internet cafe. So my back opposite neighbors were renovating their house. I got wardrobe doors that I used as tabletops. The supermarket at the time, Score, the manager, I had a great relationship with the manager. I got crates that I use as table stands. A good friend of mine gave me some money. I got a tablecloth. Another friend of mine gave me 410 Rand. That was the money I used to actually register the business, right? And I think for me it was a community effort, right? Multiple individuals played significant roles at different stages of the start, right? And again, just like that, I started. The first day I started, opened up, made 5 Rand. Was very excited for me, because then my thinking was it's going to grow incrementally and there's no other option for me. So I've got all the time in the world. Needless to say, it took, a good 7.5 years for the business to actually turn around, which is insanity when you sort of think about business principles and at which vantage point we actually tell entrepreneurs or small businesses now to actually exit when it's not making sense anymore. So for those 7 years, I was making anything between 180 to about 380 Rand, a month.
And doing what specifically?
So most of it was really typing CVs. I've typed over 20,000 CVs. So I know this because I save them. So I used to save them and actually have the CD that I saved all of them in and we backed them up, right? But, I've typed over 20,000 CVs. There's actually way more than that. So bulk of our cash then came from faxing, came from typing CVs. And then much later on when we had a stable connection, from Telkom at the time, we're able to then provide cheaper connectivity. And then that also helped us to ramp up because at some point, then the faxing was phased out by fax to email, but we're able to generate income and capital from that. So then the business started from there, and I think in between there, one has done things like selling stationery packs, polonies and cheese. I've transported school kids. I've done rubble removal. I've done no mayin. The very antithesis of no mayin was me. But also for me, I think that motion is important. Because if you don't move, you stagnate, and if you stagnate, your brain locks up. So it's important to always keep active, whether it's reading, whether it's interacting with people, whether it's learning new concepts and ideas. So I think for me, that's my start. And I think much later on, then this small internet cafe grew into a printing business that became a manufacturing business, and we sold it. About 2 years ago, we sold the business. It had done well, and I felt like it was time for me to jump to other things.
You talk about this like very long journey across different ideas, testing different things, trying different things. But the goal is always just to be able to create value for the world and try and solve some kinds of problems. Do you remember, the early challenges that you had, especially when you go through that sort of 7-year period, but now you've established, okay, this is now a printing business, this is a manufacturing business. When you get into that phase now, what are the things that, are challenges that you faced in establishing it there, and the things that you're trying to do to solve them as well?
I think for me, at the time, the peak challenges that we're sort of faced with is, number one, you don't have the expertise for what you're doing. So you're literally learning on the go. We didn't even know how to use, I was a one-man band, so I didn't even know how to use some of the equipment. And I really relied on a friend of mine's older brother who was an IT specialist. And whenever he'd come back from work, I'd spend some time with him, wash his car in exchange for knowledge. He'd bring me some old equipment from work. I'd sort of learn how to network and all that stuff, right? So it really was the lack of knowledge. The second thing really that was really a big challenge was obviously infrastructure, because we didn't have the infrastructure in place to be able to provide that type of service, at that level, in competing with other guys that were out there selling the same service. And I think the third thing was when we actually got to a point where we were to hire, the mindset from the people was, but what do you mean I'm going to get a job 2 streets from my house? That doesn't make any sense. I'd rather get a job from an established brand, even if I was earning less, because it's an established brand, right? So those are some of the misconceptions and challenges that we had to work through. From a service provider, the fourth thing at the time was, from a service provider and a supply aspect, even though we had paid credits ahead, we couldn't get a courier company to come in and pick up parcels to deliver to our clients, because of whatever reasons they had in place. And that was a challenge, which meant that we had to then bulk up some of our resources to hire someone to buy a vehicle for that person to be our own delivery vehicle, delivery individual. So I think for me, those are the challenges then. And I think, because of the insatiable desire to want to solve the customer's problem and pain, you sort of come up with ways to make it work. And I think also beyond the customer, just before the customer, is a resolution that I've made to myself that I don't have any other option. You know, and I actually want this to be my only option. And I want to do as much as I can for this to actually work out and succeed.
Yeah. I was going to talk about like mindset and how important that mindset is, especially when you don't have the resources, you don't have the support. Your mindset and your drive needs to come from you. How do you cultivate the right mindset to be a really great entrepreneur, but be able to also withstand the challenges that you are definitely going to face?
You know what? I think for me, obviously, because of my belief, because of my beliefs, I think what helped me a lot, what still helps me today, is prayer. So I used to do some interesting stuff, right? I mean, I'd open up this internet cafe. It wasn't even on the main road, right? I mean, it was slap bam in the middle of a section or area in Tembisa called Hospital View. And I mean, if anyone knows that area, you know that there's no activity that happens beyond 8 o'clock. You know, everyone locks themselves in their houses, right? And late in the afternoon, that's when there's activity. So you're sitting there alone and you're in the middle of this actual town, not on the main road. So you have to sort of find ways of attracting the customers and solving for the customer problem, you know? And I think for me, what then became very important at the time with regards to that was, it's important, whatever you tell yourself, you need to believe your own hype. So the interesting stuff I do in the morning, I mean, I'd say stuff like, you know, people are coming in from the north, west, south, and east. They're flying in, they're swimming in, they're walking in, they're cycling in. Some crazy stuff,
so
right?
you're basically just generating
my own energy because I knew what the day was going to do to me. It was going to hammer me. And how the house was sort of positioned was that, you know, it was at a curve, so you could almost see someone walking from a distance, right? And you'd hope, you know, in anticipation and excitement, thinking that that's a customer who's going to walk in and do stuff. So I had more people coming in to ask me for directions than people actually coming in for actual services, right? So I think that entrepreneurial mindset becomes very important because you are going to be tested. You know, entrepreneurship from the outside looking in looks easy, but however, you know, not all that glitters is gold, you know, and for things to glitter, you know, they go through a lot of tests each and every day and challenges that you need to juggle each and every day. So being able to build that mental resilience is important. Being able to build a community of people around you is important. Then what that then helps us with, it helps us move slightly away from the statement that says, you know, entrepreneurship is lonely. Yes, it's a personal journey, so it's lonely in that sense, but it doesn't have to be one where you're ignorant of the fact that there could be a community of people around you where you can bounce off thoughts. Yes, they might not bring you the solutions, but at least it helps you to soften up the blows of the challenges you experience every day.
Yeah. So you go on this amazing journey and like you've built this, you know, branding and then manufacturing business, which you, again, mentioned that you sold, and congratulations. I think
Thank you.
we don't hear about, you know, small to medium enterprises actually being acquired even. You know, what was the final version of the business that you built, and when did you realize how important branding would be for businesses and individuals?
Sure, man. You know, I think for me, when I look back, the beautiful part was you're running this business, it's still in Tembisa. It's operating at a 480 square meter office and production space. We've got equipment, some super specialized equipment that even similar businesses in certain urban communities or areas don't have, right? At the time, we had over 38 staff members. And I think for me, that was a beautiful story, you know, to be able to say, we've built this thing out of nothing, and now here it is, that has created a sustainable business with a sustainable multinational clientele, right? And is solving for that. But where I sort of saw that branding was important was when, you know, I take a couple of steps back, was the turning point in the internet cafe, right? Because I think one morning, you know, I think not even one morning, but there was a particular point, I don't know what drove me to that, but sort of trying to solve for, but why do people come here? You know, so the simplistic mindset is to say, no, but people are coming to an internet cafe to print stuff, to scan stuff, to email stuff. But it's like, no, but because then I noticed a pattern. Whenever certain job posts would open up, you'd have an influx of individuals. So it was great because you made money, but then I had to ask myself a question. So if you've got 100 individuals that are coming in to apply for a post at the local hospital for security, and all of them have got grade E because it's the minimum requirement. What then sets them apart? Because the CVs literally look the same. It's white blank papers, 80 GSM paper with black ink. Then what we then did is I then tried to solve for two things. Number one was for the efficiency and speed because I worked alone. So efficiency and speed said build a template. And then how then do we then help these individuals to actually acquire eyeballs if they've got the same qualifications and backgrounds as other competing individuals? Then we added a basic design. But not even a color design, like a very light, what we call the grayscale light background on there. Nice, beautiful pattern. You almost didn't see it if you didn't pay attention, but it was there if you actually really looked, right? What that then did for the business, it meant that we got more people coming in to actually thank us for getting them jobs. That was a crazy thing for me because how did I get you a job? It's all you. Over and above that, the beautiful part in that particular journey was the fact that now you had people driving and commuting via taxis all the way from Rustenburg to Tembisa to get this CV typed out. So had we known what we know now, in and around digital transformation, we could have potentially even built a platform where you could access this from anywhere in the country and made bang.
Yeah. We've sort of evolved from that time now to having branding be so important and prominent for individuals to try and find jobs or find opportunities, to businesses trying to set themselves apart for the customers that they need. Why is branding so important for individuals and businesses?
No, man, branding is very, very important. And I'll tell you why, right? I think, especially because life is a pitch at the end of the day. Whether we like it or not, you sort of look at basic upbringing or the communities that we're in. Do you know Mash? Which Mash? The podcasting guy. Do you know Bulelani? Which Bulelani? The township guy. Do you know Jabu? Which guy? The guy, man. That guy, the short guy. The guy who does sound. Yeah. So we are described by the experiences that people have of us. We are described by how we have made people feel. That then is a process of you branding yourself. But part of branding yourself is being able to take into cognizance that the 4 critical things that go into that is, your vision, your objectives, being clear on your vision, your mission, your objectives, but most importantly, your values. So we normally get into spaces and people talk about how I've got values. But then you ask the person, what do you mean by those values? Because I say I won't hang out with people like Mash or people like Bulelani because I've got values, but we can't really measure and quantify what you actually mean. But if you had to understand those 4 critical things at the base of building your personal brand, of building you as an individual, you'd find that the moment you've clearly identified your vision, which is your why, your objectives, which is where you want to go and your goals, right? Your mission, which is the overarching thing that has great pillars and steps that drives you to where you need to go. And then you get to the values. The values are not just pies in the sky that we pull, but it's you need to be able to define them for you so that, because your values are what should determine which brand you work with and which brand you don't. Your values should be what actually should be determining the people that you hang out with, who you marry and who you don't marry. I'll make you a quick example, right, around values. So if my value is integrity and I run a company with trained employees and I say to them our value is integrity and I ask them, what do you understand about integrity? All 10 of them will give me their own versions of what integrity means. That's bad for business because it's not what we want to convey across. So the 3 steps there is number 1, define what your value is. So let's say your value is integrity. That's perfectly fine, right? The second step is, so the first one is identify the values integrity. The second one is, I say, simplify it in a one-liner. So I'd say then integrity for me means doing what you said you would do when you said you would do it, right? And then I'd then say, create 2 or 3 steps that you would measure. So I'd then say that to know that a driver in my company is operating in integrity, number 1, they must demonstrate that they understand the works brief for the day. And how do they demonstrate that? They've gotten a supervisor to sign off. The second task is they need to be consistently updating the supervisors on execution on task. How then do we measure that? The supervisor will be the one who will actually confirm and sign off at the end of the day. Number 3 is over and above everything they've been given, they need to be able to demonstrate that they've gone over and above whatever task that they've been given. How then do you measure that? The supervisor is the one who actually signs off. So in any given day, you are able to utilize that simple formula for hiring people, for what type of furniture you buy, where you actually set up your business, which platforms you actually utilize. So it's critically important. And we normally undermine it because, and I also understand the mindset of small businesses, right? We're solving for our deadline, right? We're operating at a debt ratio. We're chasing month end. So if anything doesn't solve for two things, which is making us money now or saving us money now, we're not interested in it. But it's important for the entrepreneurs to consistently do the entrepreneurial work, because the moment we do that, then it keeps us on the pulse of what we're actually trying to build.
Yeah. What are the practical steps for a small business to take right at the beginning, once they define these things, to try and start to build a brand?
So the first step, right, over and above what I've just said, right, because that's entrepreneurial stuff that you do every day, is understanding a key thing. Because of the fact that you're starting out and you're small, you might not have big budgets to be able to spend on a marketing team, on an agency, and the sort. So the first thing that you need to then clear out is whatever marketing collateral that you print, that you get made, that you get branded, it's important for it to spark conversations, because the most potent form of marketing will remain the saying word of mouth, age immemorial. So someone sort of sits there and says, but how is word of mouth important? Because you've got Facebook advertising, you've got digital advertising, you've got digital billboards, you've got all these things. The whole point of any marketing collateral is to get people to talk. So which is why as a small business, you've got the agility to be able to then come with innovative ways. You know, do I come to this podcast interview wearing all blue? Do I come to this podcast interview dyeing my hair all red? Do I come with my shoes off? Because it might seem like an alternate conversation, but the moment you've gotten my attention about my shoes, now I want to know you. So which is why it's important for you to be able to get people talking. Then on the second thing, on the base of that, is to do the second critical thing. It's important then for you to be able to then differentiate yourself, right, within that segmentation by doing a couple of things. Then always, whatever you do, always lead the person or the customer or the potential individuals that you're engaging with to a point where they ask you how and why. Because the moment an individual is asked you how and why, the sale is closed. And also understanding a couple of key things. Do not separate your sales from your marketing and your branding journey. Keep them intrinsic, because then what you're able to do is that you're able to keep your hand on the pulse of the growth of your business. The moment you do that, you will grow at a beautiful rate.
Yeah. How important is storytelling, especially, you know, you're talking about businesses who don't have budgets, they don't have resources, but you have your phone and you have access to millions of people now through these amazing platforms. How important is storytelling for businesses, and how have you used it to try and drive the growth that you've seen as well?
So I'll tell you, I remember sitting there with an agency head, one of the big agencies in the country years ago, right? They sort of picked me out because our business card was so unique. So this finance guy got this business card, he liked it, introduced us to these guys, a lifelong relationship ensued. But before it ensued, I'm sitting there in the meeting and says, tell me a bit about yourself. I then say to him, no, you know, we print, we're the best, we know we can print cheaper, whatever. So he then, you know, he cuts the meeting 5 minutes in and says, you know, cut the BS. You know, you are not cheaper than the guys we're using. You will never be cheaper than those guys. It's impossible, right? Number one. Number two, you're not telling me anything because all the things that you're telling me are functional. Maybe let's take a couple of steps back, all the way back. Tell me your story. Why this? Where do you come from? The moment I engaged them on my story, number one, is sort of deflating because I wanted to come off as professional. I'm on the money, I'm on the ball, but here I am telling my story. I wasn't proud of my story because my upbringing is not a beautiful upbringing. But here's this individual who's saying, maybe I'll be able to help you piece the puzzles, the pieces of your story better, you know, the moment you take me back. The moment I told him about my story, where I came from, that then went from a 30-minute meeting to a 15-minute meeting. You know, then at the end of that, he then committed two things to say, because of how resilient you were in your entrepreneurial journey and your beautiful story, I will do two things. We can't work with you because you are too small and you don't have the resources, but I will make sure that I introduce you to certain brands. I will make sure that I talk about you in different spaces so that you get opportunities. So storytelling then becomes critically important as a small business owner, because if I compete on the base of price, that's a race to the ground. If I compete on the base of we are the best, you can't measure that, and there'll always be someone better. So I can't compete on the base of functionality because there's someone who's always miles ahead. But the one critical thing that I can always compete on is my story, because my story, contains uniqueness and has uniqueness that no one else can match. But also, on the back of uniqueness, it's important, and I love what you said, it's important for us to understand a couple of things. Your story is unique to you. But that uniqueness in the market might not be there if someone else has a bigger share of voice. So what also then becomes equally important is for the individuals not just to have a great story and keep it to themselves, but you need to share that story on your social platforms, on your digital platforms, share it with your customers, go to networking events, whenever there's an opportunity to pitch, share that story. Because the moment you share that story, then you have segmented yourself as the individual who's the forebearer of that particular story. Yeah. That's how you break yourself away from losing that uniqueness within the market and gaining market share.
Yeah. You're talking about businesses who are, you do have a focus on township-based businesses. And, you started an initiative called T. Yeah. Can you talk about what inspired you and what T is?
Sure, man. Maybe let me start with what inspired me. At some point within the growth of my business, at some point we started growing very, very much. And because we're telling our story, it garnered the attention of a number of different individuals, whether it was event organizers, whether it was brands or corporates who invited me to come share my story, right? Then I realized that, quite interestingly enough, I was being profiled on these media platforms, sharing my story, travel in the country and other parts of the world. And everywhere I'd go, right, it's just beautiful places, right? Beautiful branding, beautiful experience, beautiful look and feel. But anytime I would go to any workshop or training in the township, it was in this community hall that was dirty, chairs are broken, the facilitator doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. It's like they brought in their, not even their B team, but their Z team to come out into the township, right? And I think for me, that was the first thing. The second thing for me was whenever I interacted with my peers or aspirant entrepreneurs, right? Some of the questions that they would ask me in my ignorance, I felt like, but that's a small, easy thing. Why are you asking that? But then I realized that they didn't have access to basic information in terms of how they can navigate and move that space. So when we then decided to start T, I decided to start T 9 years ago with a simple aim. And the aim then was to solve for two things. Gather local entrepreneurs. The time was only for Tembisa because it was a side passion of mine. Gather a few entrepreneurs once a month to do two things, share information and get to know each other. That's it. So if someone knows where we can register whatever, tell the next person. If someone knows where we can access money or training or whatever, tell the next person and let the rand circulate, right? But because of the, I guess the insatiable hunger to solve problems, I guess then it became to solve entrepreneurial challenges and problems. We then started to build in certain tools. Then we started to have the workshops more frequently. Then we started to, instead of just solving for those two things, go deeper with the content. Leverage existing networks to come in and facilitate workshops at the time and training. And then I guess, 9 years later, it's grown into this nationwide initiative that has been able to directly impact over 80,000 township entrepreneurs. Sure, man, we've provided grant-based funding for over 450 plus actually entrepreneurs. We continue to do that. We do research and insights. And I think, it's part of our growth. There's so many other things that we really want to solve for, because the more you do the work is the more you realize that the challenges are not surface-based. And, the best way to complain is to innovate and come up with solutions. So instead of the age-old government's not doing anything, corporate is not doing anything, no. Let's build the stuff so that they see value in what we're building. Maybe they'll then jump on the train the moment it's moving.
Yeah. You're talking about innovation as well as township entrepreneurs, which sometimes isn't mentioned enough together. What is digital transformation and why is it important for township SMEs?
You know what, when you sort of look at the township, right, we've always innovated. Because innovation at its basic core, it's when two ideologies collide, right? So that's innovation. It's when a camera meets a smartphone. It's when the taxi driver understands that I don't just need to do local ferrying. I can transport school kids and then do staff. Staff would be individuals that work till very late at night, and they pick up these individuals, then I can do trips. That's what it actually means. But however, the missing part has always been the fact that we have not been able to truly package. Now, digital transformation for me becomes critically important because what it means is that, I might be geographic in terms of my personal location, in terms of my business location, but I could actually export my products anyway. When you sort of look at the landscape of e-commerce, the digital landscape, with social media, where I'm able to share insights on my product in a democratized fashion and manner. Now, that then becomes very, very important, especially for small businesses, right? And I think what's also then becomes equally important over and above that is the fact that the moment you become consistent within your space, it forms part with our earlier conversation, you are branding yourself within that space. The moment you're consistent on your digital platforms, the moment you go back and you're asking the deeper question, so should we send out the email? What must the email signature look like? What does that electronic communication look like? Should we be sending bulk emails or bulk SMSs? How do our customers feel about that? That in and itself is part and parcel of digitally transforming your business in such a way where it becomes lean. Because the moment you achieve that level of leanness while still taking the customer along for the journey, then you've got a winning product and a solution. And I think it goes without saying, because of the socio-economic impact of things like unemployment, joblessness, crime, and a myriad of different things, right? You then find that obviously crime is on the rise. So a small business owner, it becomes more critical now more than ever to also democratize your digital capital. How are you receiving payments? Because if you are still ignorant to receiving payments, then you're blocking yourself up to growth. And you're actually also opening yourself up to losing that revenue through crime and the sort. So that sort of encapsulation is very important.
You spoke about specifically around the payments part, but what other areas do you think township SMEs can start to really think about digitally transforming their operations so that they can become more lean, but also operate in a more efficient way to be able to achieve the growth that they need?
For me, it's a couple of things, right? Definitely, number one, the payments, very important, but also from a process and operating aspect is also critically important. Could you set up forms? Could you take advantage of Canva? Spend an hour on a Saturday watching tutorials while practicing, then you've got the hang of it. Then now you start to operate in a leaner way, right? And I think for me, when you sort of then track back to your own operation, it's important for you to understand how your business operates for you before you even identify a system. Because before you identify an accounting system or a CRM that's going to help you with management of tasks, basic tasks, right? And I think at the most basic level, Excel does that. Because you take the Excel, you put it on a Google Drive, you share it with your team at the cheapest methodology to utilize, and they input the information in real time, right? But then the moment you go deeper with that, then you can then look at other platforms that are out there in the market. But then it becomes important for you to understand, what is our customer cycle, customer journey, right? What journey are we taking our customers for? When we operate technically, what do we need to take into cognizance when we're operating technically? Because those keynotes will then form part of the type of system that you then build up or you adopt. And when you talk of build up, it's not a foreign thing, it's not a complex thing. It's following basic steps to be able to automate.
Back to T, right? And the work that you've done on the ground with township entrepreneurs, introducing them to tools and different resources that they can use to run their businesses. What role does training and development play in really being able to help these businesses digitally transform, but also just run in a better way to grow?
Training goes, so I need to answer this question two-pronged. So training is important because, we start businesses according to the level of our education, according to our level of our exposure, and according to the level of our knowledge, which then becomes critically important that even if I was an individual who grew up in Tembisa like I did many years ago, it makes sense why I started with an internet cafe, because my only other option was a car wash, shisanyama, a tavern, selling a makota, a mini tuck shop, selling veggies on the side of the road, and there are a bunch of other things, right? And I sort of had to look at where were my interests, and my interest lay in that, and I started because of that. But Had I exposed myself, I probably would have started something else. So which is why then, exposure then becomes critically important. But what exposure then does is it's soft training. Because what you're then doing is that you're training your brain to new things. So we should not just limit training to formal in-class training. Right? With your social media, what I used to always say, and I still say today, especially if I'm talking to younger individuals, is, you scroll through, social media, and next thing you know, it's 4 hours later, you've been scrolling the whole day. If we're more deliberate, then we could be utilizing that time, an hour, watching tutorials on different digital video platforms, right? Learning new skills and learning new things and implementing them, number one. Number two, accessing a network of individuals who have gone ahead of you in their journey. You don't have to then ask them to be your mentors, but always hang around them, because if you spend enough time in a barbershop, you end up getting a haircut. And then I guess structured learning becomes very important, because there's certain things that you need to physically break in your mindset to learn new concepts in terms of how you manage and run your business. And I think for me, then it becomes very important for entrepreneurs to open themselves up to that, because sometimes we close ourselves up and say that all I want is money, which is equally important, right? It's an important conversation to have. But I think that's where we then bring in institutions like your enterprise supply development along for the journey, in saying to them, it's important that we do a clear assessment of the entrepreneurs. When we've established that they actually have the formal learning and the skills and competencies to grow, we don't need to put them through enterprise development. Maybe we need to put them through supply development, so that we don't overlearn them and choke them with learning that that stifles their growth.
Yeah. Are there any common mistakes you think township SMMEs are making in terms of adopting technology and digitally transforming their businesses? I
think for me, the biggest thing we definitely need to work out is, so there's this thing that we used to say growing up, and we still say, which is 6 no 9. It's not a 6 no 9, because what 6 no 9 means is that it's the same thing. You put the 6 up, you put the 9 down, it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. And I think being able to break away from that mindset, it means that you then open yourself up to adopting new technologies in an easier in an easier way. Why? Because you would have trained your palate to saying, always search for deeper meaning, always search for, could we be doing it better? There's one of the signs my mentor has up in his office is a sign that asks him a question every day. What am I doing to stand in the way of the growth of my business? Am I the bottleneck? So what that then does is that it personalizes your growth, because you don't have control of things around you. But the only way to truly open yourself up to digital transformation is to ask yourself that. And then the second thing to do is to research whatever you think you're doing now that's making you win, could you be doing it better? Yeah. And then the third thing is, how could you be doing that better? Because what that then does is it's that concept of disrupt or be disrupted. By you asking yourself that, whether it's every day or it's once a week or once a month, you are constantly putting yourself in a place where you are disrupting you.
Yeah. We've had this amazing conversation about branding, about running a business in the township. What is one thing that you wish you knew at the beginning of the journey that you know now?
Sure, man. I think for me, it's really to just, believe in myself more and not doubt myself. Because there were moments of doubt, the imposter syndrome comes in. Because of the environment that you grew up in, you don't think you deserve certain things. So you don't apply for certain things. You get certain things, but you walk away from certain things. So I think for me, it was to say that in actual fact, you were the individual who was right for those things that you let go. And I think for me, that level of self-belief is very, very important. And I think also just, I wear this cap as a reminder of the fact that, get things done to myself, to say that do the stuff. Whatever stuff you think about building, you think about creating, create it. Because no one is the right person to create it. You are the right person to create it. So build that stuff.
Yeah. There's a very big reality that most South Africans are in difficult situations, and starting a business is very far and foreign to most people. But for someone to start in difficult conditions and figure things out and be very resilient and continue to innovate, be creative, and figure it out all over and over again, it takes a very certain kind of mindset. Yeah. I think you're doing incredible work to not just embody that mindset, but also spread that mindset so other people can understand that your situation doesn't necessarily determine where you'll end up, and you can start and build things from wherever you are. What is one piece of advice that you would tell someone that's looking at this and saying, I'm in Katlehong, I'm in Soweto, I'm in Tembisa, I'm in Khayelitsha, I'm in Langa, and I want to start, I want to build. What would you tell that person?
I definitely tell them, Tengi Sacho. Tengi Sacho, Tengi Sacho. That simply translates sell. Because, what we learned from the lockdown and COVID is the fact that whatever financial security we thought we had meant nothing because it was automatically not enough. And at the end of the day, at the very center of business growth, at the very center of any individual's personal financial growth is selling. But what we have done is that we have told ourselves that sales is for certain individuals. Sales is not for certain individuals, Joe. If you work a 9-to-5, sell Tupperware. Sell something. There's always someone who's selling stuff that you can bring to work and sell. And I think for me, what that then does is that what selling then does, it puts you in a consistent position where you are being rejected. But what that rejection does, it then goes back to our initial conversation. It helps you to build that entrepreneurial mindset. So entrepreneurs always tell me, I'm waiting for cash, to start. You don't wait for cash, Joe. Someone who's already started, go resell their stuff and be a broker, and sell the stuff so that you raise the capital. Because the more you sell is the more you're able to say to yourself, in actual fact, that is not the business I'm supposed to go in. So whether you're operating a job and you're looking to go into business and you're in selling, and you're already running a business, your job is to be selling every single day. Because if you're not selling, you're not growing, you're not scaling, and you're always at the mercy of wherever you are right now. So Tembisa, sell, and get things done.
So powerful.
They must sell. So passionate about the selling thing, yes.
I think it's so important. But I really, really appreciate our conversation,
so
but more so your work as well. And I hope that people, go into the comment section, they find all the information they need to find to find the work that you're doing, but also follow your journey a lot as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
As we continue this season, we'll be diving even deeper into the helpful topics and more, bringing you expert advice, actionable tips, and inspiring stories from entrepreneurs who are blazing their own trails. We aim to provide you with the tools and knowledge you need to take your business to the next level. Remember, whether you're working from home or from your office or on the go, the Telkom Blaze Podcast is here to support you every step of the way. If you found today's episode helpful, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and reach way more entrepreneurs just like you. Stay connected with us on our social media channels and keep the conversation going. We want to hear your thoughts, your experiences, and any questions about the topics that we've discussed today. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, goodbye.